We got some breaking news, Vikings fans, as they have officially signed a quarterback, and that being John Wolford. Welcome to the Vikings Now. My name is Patrick Siepman, and we're going to be breaking down this move on today's show. As the Vikings, they're reportedly interested in trading for a quarterback, but it turns out they're just going to sign John Wolford to the practice squad, and this is going to be your emergency third quarterback. Now, I still have some idea if the Vikings could still potentially trade for a QB, but we'll talk about that on the second half of today's show. But John Wolford does have some connections here with the Minnesota Vikings. He actually started the NFC wildcard game back in 2021 with the Rams. Now, he was knocked out of this game, and then Jared Goff had to go back in and finish the job there. And he was coached by Kevin O'Connell when he was in Los Angeles. And then this past year, he did spend some time with Grant Uduinski, Kevin O'Connell's prodigy, down there in Jacksonville during training camp. So John Wolford rounds out this Vikings quarterback room, and it is a funny room to look at, to say the least. You still got J.J. McCarthy, QB1. He will be the starter for the remainder of the season, barring any injury. And you got Max Brosmer, UDFA out of Minnesota. He'll be QB2, and then John Wolford will be the QB3, the emergency third quarterback. Now, I also think the Vikings just picked him up, just a guy that can run the offense, in practice, scout team. Obviously, he's familiar with Kevin O'Connell and what the Vikings want to accomplish, but still not a big-time name that you're bringing in. And, when you're looking at this quarterback room, obviously it's not pleasant to look at. J.J. McCarthy, Max Brosmer, John Wolford, but it all comes down to J.J. McCarthy. Like, if J.J. McCarthy ends up being that guy, he ends up being a top 15 quarterback, really looking like a franchise guy, then you're looking at that quarterback room completely differently. But it truly does all come down to J.J. McCarthy, and also jobs are on the line, and the pressure's on J.J., because if J.J. looks like an historically, bad bust, and he looks like he did not live up to that 10th overall selection, like Kevin O'Connell's job's on the line. Kwesi Adofo-Mensa's job is on the line potentially. And, the room is horrible on paper, but, again, like I was saying, like if J.J. McCarthy can somehow work out, then you're looking at this room a whole lot differently. But again, if you would have just signed a high-end backup quarterback this offseason, we wouldn't have had this problem. Because also the Vikings, they're in no position right now to give up draft picks for a backup quarterback. So you're just going to go sign the best quarterback available to the practice squad, and they viewed that as John Wolford. So I'll ask you guys this. Give a grade for me. Grade the Vikings quarterback room. Give me an A, B, C, D, or F. You guys let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Right now, probably about a flat-out F, if I'm being honest. But again, it all comes down to J.J. McCarthy. That grade could completely change to like a B+, A-, if he ends up looking the part for the remainder of the season. But you guys let me know your thoughts. Grade the Vikings QB room down below. Now, John Wolford has obviously not been good in the NFL so far. 1 touchdown to 5 interceptions. Has only thrown for 390 yards. Now, he only has played 3 seasons in the NFL. So he hasn't had a whole lot of time or experience in the league. But again, he still knows the system. He knows Kevin O'Connell. So I think that's what the Vikings were valuing here in bringing him in. And again, he's emergency third quarterback. There is probably no chance, barring injury, that he ends up playing a single snap for the Minnesota Vikings. But, this all stems back to this offseason. Like, you should have valued the backup quarterback position. Like, I still can't get over that this Minnesota Vikings front office, that one, just the decision to let Daniel Jones, Sam Darnold walk out the door, whatever. That's a different conversation. But then once you did decide to let both those guys walk, and then you return the keys of the franchise over to J.J. McCarthy, 22-year-old kid, coming off a torn meniscus, the fact that you didn't value a backup quarterback because of the comp picks still drives me crazy. Because I fully believe this. If you would have signed Joe Flacco, Jacoby Brissett this offseason, this whole season would have been different. Now, am I saying the Vikings would have been, 6-1, 7-0? No, but you would have had a chance to be 4-3, maybe even 5-2. Like, Flacco has played great football for the Bengals. Jacoby Brissett has played great football for the Arizona Cardinals. But you valued a 5th-round comp pick more than having a high-end backup quarterback and also just having that veteran in the room. Even if, let's just say, hypothetically, J.J. McCarthy never got hurt, I would have still rather have had, Joe Flacco, Jacoby Brissett in the ear of J.J. McCarthy compared to Carson Wentz. And I still can't get over that the Vikings did not play Max Brosmer that Thursday night against the Los Angeles Rams. Like, I was still waking up this morning just, mind-boggled about the Vikings' decision to just continuously put out Carson Wentz there when he was clearly beat up. He was getting his ass handed to him, and they just threw him out there to the Wolves as a sacrificial lamb. And, if we were looking at the Vikings QB room earlier compared to last year, it is night and day. This room last year was absolutely stacked looking back on it. You got Sam Darnold. Obviously, he's one of the better quarterbacks in the league right now. Nick Mullins, I would consider him about a middle-of-the-pack backup quarterback. Then you had the young prodigy in J.J. McCarthy. And then your practice squad guy last year was Daniel Jones. Like, Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi, they messed this up bad. Like, we can just nail it on the head already, even if J.J. McCarthy ends up working out. Like, it's still a mess up on their part because you didn't value the backup. You should have brought back Sam Darnold. I was wrong. I was saying they should have let Sam Darnold walk. But again, I'm not getting paid to make those decisions. Those two guys are getting paid a whole lot of money. They got extensions this offseason, and they made a terrible decision where I feel like we're going to be looking back at this in a couple of years. Let's just say Darnold goes on and wins multiple playoff games in Seattle. We're going to be saying, how the hell did the Vikings let him out the door? Now, the question becomes, with the Vikings signing John Wolford, did this kill a trade? I think it did, but we'll still talk about some trade targets here coming up in just a second. But I doubt the Vikings end up making a move unless it's for somebody they really are a big fan of. But I'll ask you guys this. Are the Vikings making any more moves at the quarterback spot? Give me a T for trade or give me a P for pass. You guys let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. I'll probably say the Vikings, won't trade for a quarterback. But we'll discuss 4 names here in a second. Now, I do want to give a massive, massive shout out to today's presenting sponsor, and that is Harry's. They're a shaving company, and they have some of the best razors in the game. And for a limited time, our listeners can get the Harry's Plus trial set for only $10 at harrys.com/chat. Now, did your old razors go way too dull, way too fast, and irritate your neck? That's not the case here at Harry's. And also, did they cost way too much? Some were offering $30 for 8 refills. That is a total scam to me. And my first reaction when I was using Harry's Plus, I was completely blown away. It is the best shave I've ever gotten in my life. And Harry's Plus has an advanced pivoting system to reach every corner of your face. And it's got refined blade tech for a closer, smoother shave and a weighted metal handle for added control and comfort. And this Harry's Plus is actually Harry's heaviest handle ever. So it just gives you more control and truly can get you the best shave possible. So make sure you guys check them out. And for a limited time, our listeners can get the Harry's Plus trial set for only $10 at harrys.com/chat. This set includes the all-new Harry's Plus razor, 1 refined 5-blade cartridge, and a 2-ounce foaming shave gel, and a travel cover to protect your blades on the go. Just head to harrys.com/chat to claim this offer. After you purchase, they'll ask where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you at Vikings Now by Chat Sports, but this link is in the comment section and description of today's show. All right, let's talk about these quarterbacks the Vikings should trade for here, and the first one being a former New York Jet as well, a bust in the National Football League, but that being Zach Wilson. Right now, Zach Wilson is with the Miami Dolphins, and he is currently the quarterback 3 there, so maybe they had some interest in trading him. Quinn Ewers was already promoted to the backup quarterback, but this would kind of fall in the same bucket of a guy that didn't work out with their previous organizations, clearly has a lot of arm talent, clearly has some potential still left in the tank, and it would almost be another KOC, rehab school or KOC QB rehab school prospect there. But again, this would probably be just giving up a 7th-round pick for him. Maybe it's a 6th, 7th-round swap. But again, I don't think the Vikings are in any position to give up any future draft capital for a young quarterback. So I would probably be good on Zach Wilson. Now, another guy that's being reported out there linked to the Minnesota Vikings, Jameis Winston of the New York Giants. Jameis is obviously a polarizing quarterback. He likes to spin the ball over the lot, throws a lot of touchdowns, throws a lot of interceptions. And I will say, let's just say, knock on wood, J.J. McCarthy has to go down for whatever reason. And, this season is over. If you want to force feed Justin Jefferson, Winston is your guy. If you want Justin to average 130 yards a game for the remainder of the season, go get a guy like Jameis Winston because he will force feed him the ball. It would make 18 happy. It would make number 3 happy. So I could see the Vikings, depending on what happens this weekend against the Detroit Lions, maybe they try to trade for a guy like Jameis Winston. That's really the only option out there that I think would make sense if you're just trying to kind of almost just have fun for the remainder of the season and get your 2-star wide receiver some good numbers. Jameis does make some sense. But also another New York Giants quarterback, Russell Wilson here. Really don't have too much interest in Russell Wilson. I just don't think he would add any value at all to this football team, especially the locker room aspect. You would want a veteran quarterback who's a big-time team guy, and at least the latest reports around Russ is that he hasn't really been that over the last couple of years. I don't really know if you would have too much interest in just coming to Minnesota and, being J.J. McCarthy's backup. But, again, he is a veteran. He knows the ins and outs of the NFL. He won a Super Bowl, so maybe they would have some interest there. But, again, I don't think the Vikings would trade for Russ. Now, another guy out there, Trey Lance, backup quarterback of the Los Angeles Chargers right now. I don't think the Chargers would have too much interest in shipping him since he is their backup, but I will say, I mean, this would just kind of fall into the same bucket of like Zach Wilson, like Kevin O'Connell would, definitely have some interest there, being like, oh, I can fix this guy because KOC thinks he can fix anybody because he was telling us this whole offseason by the moves they were making, like, hey, anybody can play quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings. Obviously, that hasn't been the case, and I miss the times when we could just pick out like, oh, Trey Lance, Zach Wilson. They could come play in Minnesota and they could play some good football. At least this hasn't been the case this season. So, we'll see what ends up happening with the trade deadline next Tuesday. But if you guys made it to the end, we appreciate all of your support on the channel as of late. Just hit me with a skull down below in the comment section. We'll get on out of here. As always, Skull Vikes.